This is the I Love Success podcast. I'm Peter Jumrukovski, and I have made a vow to myself to help as many people as possible to achieve their dreams. Let's get started. Hey guys, and welcome back to the I Love Success podcast. This is the podcast where I meet the coolest and most successful people on the planet and share their stories. I am glad to be on this journey together with you. What started as an idea has now become the start of a movement. My mission is to help 10 million people in 10 years to achieve their dreams. I can't do it myself, and because of that, I'm so grateful to all my amazing guests and listeners from all over the world. Thank you. Get ready to get inspired because here we go. But before we get started, let's give it up to our sponsor, Heston's Beds in Los Angeles. Heston's has always been driven by a passion for sleep and the many benefits it brings for the body and soul. Sleep on a Heston's bed is sleep that makes a difference in the quality of your life. Sleep that allows you to function at your optimal best. A natural process that cannot be replicated both over a counter or swallowed in a pill. A Heston's bed is defined by its comfort and support, breathability, and the ability to regulate your body's temperature while you sleep. While many beds contain a variety of chemicals, glues, latexes, and foam, Heston's beds are handcrafted with exclusively all natural materials to create the perfect night's sleep. If you're serious about success, you should be serious about your sleep, and Heston's can help you. Check them out at hestonsla.com. Today's guest is a former computer geek that decided to quit the rat race, lose weight, and start fighting. He is now a MMA fighter, personal trainer, and general manager at Systems Training Center. He's a Taekwondo Black Belt, BJJ Purple Belt, and the former CXF featherweight champion. His proudest accomplishment so far is quitting the rat race and pursuing his passion of becoming a professional fighter at the ripe age of 27. His name is Dmitry Gerasimov. Welcome, Dmitry.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad to be here today with you, and I'm gonna cut right to the chase. You've had an interesting life, starting like in the computer world and then just getting out of that. But let's start about you. Who are you really as a person?
That's a loaded question. Coming out the gates crashing.
Yeah, let's go full on right away.
Well, I put it into simple terms. I think I'm a good person. I hope so. I'm a driven individual. I'm a lover and a fighter.
Yeah.
As you introed me. What can I say? I love life. I love my wife. I look to be successful at the end of it all.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So let's start of you being a kid. Did you have Russian heritage? Were you born in Russia or did you grow up in Minnesota? Can you just walk us through that?
Sure. So I was born in Russia, St. Petersburg, Russia. It's pretty cold there. And then at the age of 5, my father got us together and managed to move us out of the Soviet Union. This was right before the collapse of the Soviet Union, and luckily he brought us here to the United States. I think for my dad that was one of his biggest moves. He had always dreamed about. My family has a history of being anti-communist. Few of my family members were executed during the purges. So my dad, my mom both always dreamed of living in the States, living into what we define here versus what we define here in the States as freedom versus what they had in Soviet Russia. So for whatever reason they picked Minnesota, a place that's equally as cold as St. Petersburg. And that's where I grew up, went to high school. So I pretty much had an American upbringing. I speak Russian semi-fluently. I sound like an American that learned to speak Russian when I speak Russian. But yeah, I grew up pretty average life, pretty normal life, I should say. I grew up in the suburbs of Minneapolis. attended high school. I played football a couple of years. I did Taekwondo throughout most of my childhood. And then when I was 18, my sister talked me into, I don't know why she had to talk me into it, but believe it or not, she had to talk me into moving to California. So I moved out here to live with her. Kind of got lost, trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And then actually, one thing led to another. I ended up getting my foot in the door in the game industry. Started working for a small company called Jamdat, which is a mobile gaming company. And from there, Electronic Arts, so one of the largest game publishers in the world, ended up buying that company out. And then from there, I worked there for my tenure there under EA was about 7 years. And at the end of it, I started in the QA department as a QA tester, which is like basically equivalent to a mailroom at any company, bottom level. And many years later, I left EA as an associate producer. I started working for a small startup, actually just like one block away from where we're at right now, called Xfire. Worked there for 2 years, and I actually started fighting right when I left EA. I took my first amateur fight, and then a couple years down the line, I was at Xfire for 2 years, and then eventually I just said I can't do it anymore, because every day I'd be at work just thinking about other things that I wanted to do in my life. At the time, predominantly mixed martial arts, and I failed to mention how I got into MMA. It was my wife. At the time, girlfriend bought me a 1 month pass to an MMA gym when I was about 24. I'm 33 now, and I remember walking in to the gym, and we did the warm up 15 minutes. Ran to the bathroom, was dry heaving over the toilet. Said, that was such a pivotal moment because I almost walked out. I'm like, nope, no way. And I stuck it out, and one thing led to another, and here I am.
Here we are. Yeah, it's incredible. It's funny to hear you recap your life like in just a couple of minutes, and we're gonna try to dissect that a little bit. So let's start. Do you have any memories when you were 5 years old coming here? Do you remember anything from that time of your life?
It's funny. So many people remember vividly. Like my wife, she had a similar experience. She was 5 when she moved from Thailand to the States. She remembers so much of her childhood. She remembers Thailand. I really don't remember much of Russia. I remember like tiny little fragments. I remember getting into like a fist fight with my friend when I was like 3 years old. I remember how I got upset on my 4th birthday party because everyone got a pistol in a pistol holster, and then like a little toy gun. And an extra friend showed up, right? So my parents ended up taking my gun, and I was left with the holster, and everybody else had guns, and I got so upset. So somehow that stuck out. But I actually honestly remember very little for whatever reason.
So coming here, like, have you, as a kid, what type of kid were you? Were you the tough kid, the shy kid? Like, can you just talk us through that a little bit, and if that has affected who you are today?
I was definitely a troublemaker. I mean, I wouldn't say I was the tough kid I wasn't shy. That's for sure. Never has been a problem for me. I was a little bit of a class clown growing up. Yeah, I got kicked out of class quite a few times for cracking jokes. Yeah, I mean, I was always kind of just a wild, crazy, goofy kid. Yeah, that was always me.
And how was your parents growing up? Because like the stereotype is like the Eastern Bloc parents are so hard, and so did they fit into the stereotype or?
In some ways, in some ways, yes. They were very conservative. They had this was their plan. The only effective way of living your life was going to school, finishing college, getting a job, working for your pension, retiring. That to them was the only way to go about it. I did not finish college. I dropped out, and I started attending. My plan was to go get my general electives done at SMC, go to UCLA. I always had good grades in school, and but I hated it when I moved out here. I really didn't want to do general, I felt like I was just going back to high school again. You know, I was out here in LA, and I'm like, oh, the beach, and you know, there was like cool parties, and like I got caught up in that life, and so I dropped out. But for that whole time that I was working in the game industry, so I got probably somewhere like 7 promotions during the time I was there. Every single promotion that I would get when I was EA, I would call my parents and be like, "Hey, guess what? I got a promotion." Yeah. Same story every single time. Well, you don't have a degree, so this is as far as you go. Yeah. And that was every single time. So yeah.
Do you think it was disappointing for them that you didn't finish?
Oh yeah, but you know, my mom always has like, it irks my sister. She has a sense of, she always has pity for me because she didn't provide me enough, like the avenue to go to school and all that. They didn't have money, so you know they like, you know, it's the U.S. It costs a pretty penny to attend college. Yeah, I mean, I think there's always, I think my dad got over it eventually. You know, when I quit X-Fire, I didn't tell them for a full year that I completely exited from the game industry. And I did that intentionally and then I think that was kind of a turning point. Did it intentionally. I didn't tell them for a year just to show them that I can survive without, you know, this job or that rigid, you know, 9 to 5 that they had in mind for me. So,
yeah, it's interesting, the whole, like, I think a lot of immigrant parents have that idea, and not just only immigrant parents. I know my parents, they always wanted me to finish college. I never finished college, but I've studied the things that I like, and I see myself as a student of life. I'm not against finishing college, but I don't think it's for everybody. Yeah. So it's interesting to have someone like you who changed your whole life, even though you kind of even went against your parents in some kind of way. Was that a drive, or was that difficult for you, or what?
I knew that question was coming. I thought long and hard. You know, I wasn't very conscious of it for a long time, but you know, looking back, for sure, it was a huge motivational factor for me. Was, you know, sorry, Mom, but to prove them wrong. Yeah. I really wanted to prove them wrong. I wanted to, you know, I had every intention of doing something with my life. But I also had every intention of doing it my own way.
So let's talk about that. Do you remember when you said, "I've had enough. I'm gonna quit the rat race and I'm gonna go full on as a fighter"? I remember you told me a lot of times when we talked before that you were a little bit overweight as well, right? And you lost some weight. Can you just talk us through that journey, like?
So the overweight part. So when I've always been an avid gamer. That was, you know, it was a perfect career opportunity for me to be. You know, I was so thankful to get my foot in the door. Yeah. I was so thankful to get into production because, especially in mobile, we got a chance to play a hand in design. We got to come up with concepts, stuff like that. So it wasn't, you know, just overseeing the project, and you know, there's a little bit more creativity involved. And I'm like, I remember being a kid, I'm like, when I first heard of that, I was like, oh man, I get a chance to like do exactly what I did without, or have always wanted to do without actually having any college education. Prior to that, I thought, oh, that was a stop point for me, right? Yeah. So anyways, like I said, avid gamer, worked at a desk, or sitting in a desk most of the time. My life was at a computer. I would be at a computer at work. I'd come home. I'd be at a computer. And there was a couple of key things that ended up happening. I remember walking up a flight of stairs that we had at work, and I was wheezing at the top. And, you know, I was like, oh, can I swear, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, I was like, oh shit. Yeah. I really need to get it together because, again, it was a flight of stairs, and I walked up it and was panting at the top. Yeah. And I'm like, is this what my life has come to? And there was other things that, you know, put me in check, reminded me how like short life is. I had a friend commit suicide. My father got diagnosed with cancer, and this all happened within the span of, you know, like a year, 2 years. So 2 years actually. So I kept getting these reality checks, like, you know, a reminder. You know, even though I was at 23 at the time, I'm like, of course, at the time I thought I was invincible. That I still had all the opportunity in the world. I had so many chances and blah, blah, blah. And then it started to sink in that life's short. So like you mentioned, I was overweight. I was I clocked the highest just over 200 pounds. And not just, I wasn't obese, so to speak. A lot of people see my before and after picture. There's a big difference. A lot of people say, oh, it looks like a different person. Some people are like, oh, it's just, you didn't look like quote unquote fat. You just looked like you were kind of overweight a little bit. Yeah. But it was my health also that started to kind of deteriorate. Like I said, walking up a flight of stairs was difficult. And
was it the whole gaming lifestyle, and was it like partying as well, drinking, all those things together? Yeah. Bad diet,
all that. I was growing up, I was a skinny kid, had a high metabolism, could eat whatever. I worked at my first job when I was 15 was at McDonald's, and I would walk out of there with a double quarter pounder and supersize everything after work and be cool. Like I would go about my life. I wouldn't gain a pound. Eventually it caught up with me. And then, like you said, being a gamer, I just spent all my time in a chair. Yeah. And, I still have posture problems, though I make an attempt to correct it. I put myself in check when I'm sitting wrong. But, I introduced, other health problems as well that came with it. And, so that's, the when I started getting all those reality checks, luckily we had a gym at my work, so I started slowly kind of working out a little bit, and, here and there, I would go to the gym at work. I made some friends at the gym, and, started getting workout partners. We started playing soccer at my work. We had a soccer field at EA. It was a nice place to work at. And we'd, soccer a couple times a week, so we would pick up games. And then, like I said, one thing led to the next. And despite all that, this is just to show you how bad a shape I was in. Despite all that, I still had that occurrence when I went to the MMA gym the first time and did the warm up and was like, shit. Yeah. I felt like dying. Yeah.
So, what made you take that decision? I'm just gonna quit my job. Were you miserable? What was it like?
No, I was miserable at work. Yeah. I was miserable because this is what I went to work every single day. I sat at my desk and just waited for the clock to run down. Yeah. Because, I guess I knew it at that time that this was not what I'm going to do. Yeah. I found something so much better. And I was making a decent wage. I cut myself dry. When I quit, I started working at the front desk at Systems. Yeah. I was Marcus, who's a friend of ours. Yeah. He's been on the show before, owner of Systems Training Center and founder of the Liam's Life Foundation. I'm sure we'll get to that later. But he didn't cut me any breaks. We'd already been friends. I've been teaching at the gym. But, I didn't have Easy Street. I started, like I said, at front desk position, minimum wage. So I took a huge pay cut.
So the thing I want to talk about, because there's a lot of people out there that they have a job that they don't like, and if you make a certain amount of money, I think it's so hard because you get comfortable, it's so hard to quit. Yeah. And so I just want to talk, do you have any tips for those people that they're doing something, they're making decent money, but they're not happy with their life? Yeah. What can they do? How can they get courage? Yeah.
Step one, try things. And I mean by try activities, hobbies, whatever. Because realistically, any hobby, especially in this day and age, any hobby can be a career. You can make any hobby. However weird it is, you can make a job out of it. There's a niche for everything. Yeah. So I would say that. And that was for me. I never had that thing until I discovered MMA, specifically MMA. I've been a martial artist my whole life, and I loved doing Taekwondo, and I didn't miss it. And I would always tell my wife about it. That's how we ended up. That's how I ended up at an MMA gym in the first place. She bought me that pass because I'd always talk about it. Oh man, I really want to get back into martial arts, and I happened to really like MMA as well, watching it on TV. Something I wanted to try. Yeah. So the first thing is just to find that thing, find your passion, you know. And it's obviously way easier said than done, but you can never know if it really is your passion unless you give it a try. So when we talk about giving other people advice, I would say just you know, if you have that thing, that scratch in the back of your head, like I've always really liked cooking. I've always really, you don't necessarily have to jump into a career of it right away, right? You can, everyone's got free time to a degree. I know people have kids, whatever, but where there's a will, there's a way. It's my favorite quote in the whole world. Yeah. If you want to make a change in your life, then you have to put the effort forward. Just a little bit a day or a week or whatever, once a month, you know.
Oh, that's great. But the thing is, then I'm curious, you were having this job that you didn't really like, but you got your pay, and then you start working at front desk at a gym for minimum wage. At that point, did you sometimes think, what the heck did I get myself into?
Yeah, I still think that sometimes. You know, I'm definitely earning comparable wages now, but it's still a hustle. You know, of course. That you won't have an answer to that question until the end, you know. So you see things through, and you know, either you'll have tried and died failing, but at least you've tried, or you'll have succeeded, and you know, either way, at least you put your best foot forward.
The thing that I feel like being an athlete or an entrepreneur, whatever it is, there's no guarantees. But when you have a passion for something, it's all worth it because you feel alive.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing that I feel. Sometimes if you're at a job that you don't like, you might get a good pay, but you're not happy.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that money is good, but if you're not happy, it's difficult.
Yeah, it's the age-old anecdote. Money can't buy happiness.
Yeah.
I mean, truer words have never been spoken. You just can't. So, you know, it's a difficult thing. It's a difficult thing to walk away from that, the comfort, and like you mentioned earlier.
But it's brave. That's why I wanted to have you on, because it is brave, and it's not like a lot of people talk about. Yeah, I quit my job and now I'm doing this passion, but we seldom talk about that. You might have to have a wage cut. You might have to struggle for 5-10 years. We seldom talk about that. And if we look at all the greats, fighters, entrepreneurs, martial artists, whatever, they've had like 5, 10, maybe 15 years of hustle, right?
Yeah.
And no one wants to do that, right?
Yeah, no, of course.
But you have to do it if you want to go over those hurdles. So can we talk about, you wanted to do one MMA fight, and now we're here, you've done a whole bunch of them, and we're a CXF champion. So what made you decide I'm going to do an MMA fight?
So that was, you know, I had that even when I was at EA. I was like, I need to do something else. I really need to try, at least going back to the thing about trying, right? You know, like, actually before I just wanted to make a comment here that, you know, it doesn't happen in the blink of an eye. You don't just say you quit your job and then all of a sudden, boom, you made it because you decided to pursue the thing you love to do. And I consciously remember sitting at my desk at EA reading an article, some guy's blog, talking about how he did it. He up and left his job, traveled the world, right? And I remember thinking, that's not possible. Yeah. No way. That's never gonna be me. I always reflect on that moment because, you know, because I didn't have that passion yet. I wasn't trying. I wasn't sending probes out, so to speak, in life to see like what stuck to me. So going back to point. Sorry, what was? Can you repeat?
So I love what you said there, because I got goosebumps. That like thinking I can't do that, but you have to start somewhere, and you started, and we talked about that. You told me before starting this podcast, before we started recording, that you wanted to do one fight, and now we're here like a whole bunch of years later. So can you just talk us through that? I decided to do a fight. How did you get into it, and how did it feel? Just the first like real fight.
Right. So like I mentioned, it was always something I had wanted to try. I wanted to do a full contact fight. Now, Taekwondo, competing in that, we always wear pads. It's point fighting. You know, it's not like, I mean, sometimes people get knocked out or whatever, but I never felt like it was the real thing. And I wanted to, I should pull back a little bit. It's one thing that I've always been attracted to. I got in a lot of fights when I was in school. Because there's always something about the danger, the excitement of it all. Like, the physical confrontation, the test of wills. Like, I've always been so attracted to it. And, you know, don't get me wrong, I'm not some, like, you know, some barbarian that's looking, that has a lust for blood. And I actually hate it when people say, oh, don't beat me up, you're an MMA fighter. I'm like, yeah, because that's what I do, just go around swinging at people randomly. But, so that one fight, I like I said, I wanted to do it, and then I started training. And I started to pick up the training a little bit more. And the gym that I was going to, slowly started expanding. A couple guys ended up joining the team, and I was one of the first people there. Like, we started as WISMAC, West Side Martial Arts Club. It was a small space being rented at a Wing Chun Academy. This was before MMA like blew up to the point that it is now. So it's still kind of an obscure thing, and Pride was still alive at the time. And when we moved locations, like I said, a lot of people started coming on board. Guys like Isaac, who you know, Isaac Velasco, Isaac the Iron Man Velasco, Terrion Ware, who's currently fighting in the UFC, Camila, all these guys I started training with, they all started fighting before I did. And I was, you know, the first one there. And that was like, I was training, but I wasn't really committing to the fight. I still had my job. I still was fairly lethargic. At least I was doing training, but again, I wasn't really committing myself to it. And then I said, I have to do it. At some point, you know, something clicked, and I'm like, I'm falling behind everyone. I have to get on this. So I did it. And then when you talk about feeling alive, I had that one amateur fight. All I wanted to do, just wanted to try it once to say I did it. I won, and it was spectacular. And I probably would say for the first time I ever felt alive. You know, so. And how can you walk away from a feeling like that?
Yeah, it's almost it's like the best drug in the world, right?
Absolutely.
That high of feeling accomplished. And the cool part that I liked also when you were in that team or club or gym, you saw your peers started fighting, and that kind of catapulted and helped you, right? So I think it's very important to be in the right environment as well, right? And after that fight, you said, what did you wanted more, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there wasn't even like, I didn't even have to reflect on it. So I was just like, yeah, let's go on to the next one. My next fight was a month later.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I took it on 2 days notice.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So those, I didn't mention, this was during, my first fight happened right around the time of the bubble. So the economy was dropping, EA had downsized repeatedly. I actually ended up having to lay people off because for a interim, I was moved as an interim. They gave me a huge bonus to do it. As an interim QA manager, they fired the QA manager. They brought me on board, and I didn't even know, basically to be the Axeman. They didn't tell me this, but so I ended up having to lay off most of the department that I had, you know, been around with for years. When I got back into production, the layoffs over the course of, you know, a year and a half, 2 years, continued to happen, and, you know, eventually I had to come to I got pulled to the chopping block. It wasn't even a surprise to me when my boss was like, didn't follow me. I'm like, yep, here we go. Yeah. So I lost my job a couple of days before that first amateur fight. So I, you know, in my circumstances, it was almost like fate conspired, because now I had some free time. You know, so while I was in between jobs, I was like, all right, let's do some fights, and.
You got the medicine you needed at the point. Yeah. So can you just talk us through, now you've been fighting for 6-7 years? Or how many?
Yeah. Yep, 6 years.
6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And
6 years actually this month.
This month. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah, thanks.
So can you just talk us through what has been your worst moment as a fighter and your best moment?
Oh. My worst moment as a fighter. I guess, I had, my dad died in February, and I lost. It was just tough. It's life, but I won the title, and then I lost the title right before I came to visit my dad. So that was kind of a bit of a tough one for me. Yeah. So losing the belt right before flying home to see my dad.
Yeah.
That was when I won the title. I flew home to see my dad. Right. I had a belt around me, and then I flew back again. So my last fight to my dad's memory was me losing. But my dad wasn't super. Neither of them were super involved in my MMA career. They were both. My dad was a physics professor in St. Petersburg. My mom was a music theory teacher and then a dental assistant here in the States. So the MMA wasn't like a thing for them really. But again, it would have been nice to at least have that, to bring home that belt. Yeah. So that was a tough one for me. Yeah.
It is hard. I think losing is really hard. But I remember something that you wrote actually that I really loved. I can't paraquote all of it, but you were talking about when you were fighting, you're not there to win. You're there to win, but it's about expressing yourself and testing what you have worked on, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. Maybe you can say it better.
I have to pull up the. I know. I remember I posted on social media. I know what you're talking about, but I can't. I can't paraphrase.
It was so good because I really like that, like evolving yourself. But then you're in that situation when you actually lose. Then it's hard to feel like that.
Yeah.
And we'll like. I know as an athlete myself, I was like, it's okay to lose. But once you lose, when you do lose, it's so hard. Especially if you've won before, right? Yeah. Because you felt actually you lost. You might have lost the belt, but no one can take away that you actually won the belt, right? So talk about when you won the belt, because that was also a very, very special moment. I remember that because our mutual friend Marcus' son was killed by a drunk driver, and this was just weeks after that happened, right?
Yeah.
And they renamed the whole event to CXF for Liam, and you fought and you won the title. And leading up to that fight, I mean, you worked nonstop. You dealt with everything at Systems Training Center. You had a loss as well. You have grief, and you had to help Marcus and all of them. So that moment, can you just talk us through that moment?
Yeah, absolutely. So, 2 weeks prior to the fight, Marcus's son Liam, who was a year and a half, was struck by a drunk driver while him and his aunt were crossing the street. Well, his aunt broke her leg. Michelle's Marcus's wife, Michelle's sister, broke her leg, and Liam, who was in a stroller, was killed. I mean, he was on life support, and then but he was clinically he was brain dead, and sometime later they ended up pulling the plug. So this was Marcus is one of my close friends. He's been a coach to me. He's been a mentor in a lot of ways. He's my neighbor. I mean, we're practically like roommates because we have open door policy at our apartment. We live next to each other. His family, my family, and so it was tough. And it was 2 weeks before the fight. We ended up organizing a fundraiser for the family, for Marcus and Michelle, to the gym, which ended up being a huge event. And I don't know. For me, it's hard to think of it as like an accomplishment, or because it was whether it was the right or wrong thing to do, whatever. It was the only thing to do was to pull myself together as much as I humanly could for you know, for them, for everybody else. So yeah, I mean, it was for all the shittiest reasons. It was a busy time at the gym. I mean, not the shitty. I shouldn't say that. I mean, the core of it. It was the event that led up to it was shitty. But you know, seeing everybody come together as a community, as a family, our gym, all the members at the gym, all of the fighters, all of our staff members, all the friends and family coming together. I mean, it was beautiful to see, actually, just to see how much people stand behind each other. But yeah, like I said, you know, I had that fight. So leading up to 2 weeks leading up to that fight, I had no other sight, no other aim in my head than to win that fight. Because, and I told Michelle 2 weeks after losing their son, Marcus still cornered me, and Michelle came to the fight, and I knew we all needed to win. So, you know, it wasn't almost like it wasn't just me just fighting the fight. It was all of us in that cage that day. So,
but did you feel? But did you feel? You must have been exhausted in your body, or how did you get that energy and power to just go out there? You know,
this is, you know, it was necessity. You know, it was. I just, again, like, I didn't see any other way of going about it. It wasn't the time. It wasn't the time to, as closely as I was affected, everybody around us was affected by it. We weren't the ones that, it was Marcus and Michelle that lost their son, you know. So that's what I mean. Like, everyone rallied together, and I just did my part as much as everybody else did. I just happened to have a fight scheduled, so.
No, it's I love you saying that, but also it's like it shows what a man and what a character you have, because it's so easy. I think in moments like this is when you show your true colors, right? And to be able to have that strength and do this, it's incredible. So my hats off to you for doing that.
Thank you, Peter.
It's beautiful. And after that, you had your next fight that you lost. And what's gonna happen now with your MMA?
So I had, you know. So 2017 was a kind of pretty turbulent time. Like I mentioned, my father passed away. Eventually, my dad went into remission a few times, and the cancer eventually caught up to him. They refused further treatment for him right before. And I found this out a few weeks before that fight where I lost the title. And you know, it is. That's why I guess maybe again when I talk about it being one of the toughest times is like that same strength and like ability to rally myself that I had for them. I just couldn't do it for myself and my family. But so I lost the title. I had a couple of fights in between. I had one. It's such a year of ups and downs. So I had one. I took a short notice fight again at a higher weight class against the BJJ Black Belt. And it was a prelim, but it was on LFA, which is a televised event. So it was this big opportunity that I had, and I ended up submitting him. So I ended up submitting a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Black Belt and my German Purple Belt in the first round, which, you know, was like, it was a big deal. But then I lost again. But I would say I would definitely lack focus this year. On my training. It didn't seem like as important. So you know, I slept in the bed I made for myself. I think that the loss is nobody's fault but my own. But I started this year with a renewed sense of focus. I have a daughter on the way. I have thank you. My priorities have shifted, and like I said, I have renewed focus in 2018. The year just started, but I already had made a decision that, like, get your shit together at the end of 2017. So here I am. You know, every day I take it I take every day one step at a time, one day at a time.
But I mean, you're allowed to grieve too. It's your family. It's normal. And I think sometimes we just want to move on, but we can't, right? We get stuck in these things because we need to think about those, and we need to be low sometimes, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. You're absolutely right. And I maybe didn't give myself, at least towards the beginning, first half of 2017, I really didn't give myself that opportunity to grieve. I kept, I was going fight to fight, and I will readily admit I was drinking a bit too much first half of the year, and I was trying to ignore the problem. I didn't know how to deal with it. I've never lost a dad before, most people whose father is still alive. So I haven't dealt with a whole lot of loss in my life in general, and then it was just like all this compounded events. Having to say goodbye to multiple people repeatedly or back to back, people that I care about. So.
It's not easy. I remember, I just want to share this with you if it's okay.
Absolutely.
When I was at Systems and your parents were there, I think it was maybe a year ago, maybe a little bit more, and you were teaching a class, and I talked with them, and you talked about that journey that you might not ended up in the exact place that they wanted, but when I talked, I could see that they were very proud of you.
Yeah.
And that is something that is very cool.
Yeah.
And they were, and that's so cool to see, because I know, I didn't take the route that my parents maybe wanted or saw, but at the end of the day, they just want the kids to feel good, have a good life, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, my dad loved my wife. My mom loves my wife. She's part of our family. So I know that they're generally happy for me. So, and I appreciate that, Peter. I appreciate you sharing that.
So that's good. How does it feel to be a father now?
Well,
or
right
soon,
now this
soon,
is
soon
I haven't
to
even, I'm still at the starting line.
Yeah. What do you think? Have you thought about? Are you gonna change because now there's another person in the world. Are you gonna change how you are as a person, or have you thought about those things?
I have been resolute on it. Just like I said, I started the year with a renewed sense of focus. I found out in a couple months back. I was still kind of getting through everything, but it happened since 2018 has started. I have just tried to be better in every respect that I can.
Like what?
Well, I completely stopped drinking. I know that I need to be diverting all of my energy into being as rational and present. So, and that, it's not just drinking, but going out and partying, all that. It's just, I guess it was way easier than I thought it would be too, but I was just set myself and position myself in a different place now. I have completely different motivation. I realize that when she's born come May, that will be 100% of my focus. So, I've tried to start training myself to live for her already, rather than just myself and my wife. So, the small things like organization of our house, and we did some spring cleaning, and it seems like not a big deal, but me and my wife have this thing where we cannot cook or clean together. Yeah. It's true. We've never been able to do it because we're at each other's throats. Yeah. We tried to paint the house one time together. Yeah. Good. And then I'm not allowed in the kitchen when she's cooking because I always have to say something. She can't stand it when I'm in there. But even just for us as as a team, you know, like we completely cleaned our kitchen out, and it was amazing to see us work as a team. No one was at each other's throat, and I'm like, it felt like such a big step for us in our relationship between each other and, you know, as parents potentially. So, but everything, you know, we talked about morning routines. I have a bit of a morning routine now. Like I wake up, I have some investments. I check my investments on my computer first thing, you know, straight to business. I make myself a cup of tea. I got back to training regularly in the morning. I was kind of getting lackadaisical towards the end of last year. So yeah, training and then straight to work now.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit curious, like how do you, because you're a leader, you manage people, and when you have a rough year like that, how do you lead and manage people? Because sometimes I feel I have so many interactions every day, and when I have bad days, it feels like sometimes I have to mask all my problems just to go out in the world and to lead well. So I'm a little bit curious if you have any tips for that, or how did you cope with that?
It's an interesting question. I mean, I think working for a corporate, EA was a corporation. Working for a corporation has kind of trained me to set aside my personal matters. I've known for, like, I learned it long time ago, and I've been able to maintain it, that you don't bring your personal problems. I instill that same standard in my staff as well. You know, systems is a different place. We like to consider ourselves a family, a community. We're tight knit. You know, but ultimately, when it comes to the job performance, you can't let personal issues affect that, because it's just going to get a whole lot worse, those personal problems, if you're not maintaining your professional.
So as a martial artist and MMA fighter, how has that helped you in your personal life?
Immensely. So it has brought, I would say, MMA has brought so much value to my life. And it's so funny to think, because it is a blood sport, and of course that is immediately what people see on the surface, is just brutes punching each other in the face until they're bloody. I've had this conversation with my parents' friends, real fun conversations, and they're always the same. You could die. You could die. Why are you doing? Well, you could die. But I think from that struggle, characters are built. You know, in general, struggle builds character, right? But you're laid bare when it comes to an MMA fight. So, I mean, because of that, I find that MMA fighters are often some of the most humble, down-to-earth people.
Incredible people.
Yeah. And it just, like, it's still never surprising how cool some people are that are in the sport.
I think it is. It all comes down to the core what Bruce Lee talked about, the art of expressing yourself as a human being. And I think there's nothing more authentic and real than fighting, right?
Yeah. I think maybe it was Joe Rogan that said it. So he thinks everyone should get punched in the face just once. Yeah. It was a humbling experience, and but yeah, I mean, it's that the biggest thing for me is just the community. Because I was so passionate about MMA. Yeah. Sorry, sidetracking from the community. I'll get back to it. Because I was so passionate about MMA, I found my discipline, or where I didn't have it for a long time. I found something that was so important to me that I was willing to make sacrifices. I understood the real concept of discipline, which is the ability to not do the things you want to do now so you can do the things you want to do later. And I mean, that's something I carry with me every day. I will carry with me till the day I die. I have a greater understanding of what struggle is. I have amazing friends. I have people that I really consider family to me. That has all stemmed from this. My career now, and still in general, like it's put me in the gym, and the gym is church and psychiatrists all in one. It's community center, and it's house where people walk into with one objective, is to get better. And I think that is such a beautiful thing, that people walk through the doors and everyone's got the same goal ultimately. It is to improve, whether it's just to get better at technique, learn a discipline, or to lose weight and feel better about themselves mentally, physically, whatever. It's such a noble pursuit, and I love it. I love the community. I love everything about it. I don't love everything about it, but I love most things.
Yeah, that's great. And so where do you see your life going after you're done fighting?
What do you mean done fighting?
Like,
I'm just kidding.
No, for example, after you're done competing, like, I don't know how long you're gonna compete, but after that, where do you see your life going after that?
So I'm still gonna keep myself relevant to the sport in one way or another, whether it's just whether it's coaching, whether it's teaching, whether it's just running the gym. Maybe I don't even know if I'm gonna be teaching in the future. I hope so, but yeah, I mean, my life as a whole, I definitely will stay relevant, or keep martial arts, I shouldn't say MMA, martial arts in general, relevant to myself. Something that I will try to pass on to my kids. I'm certainly not going to force my child or any subsequent children to do. I've lived that life, so I don't need to live it vicariously through them. But I hope that it's something that they can grasp onto, so they can reap the same benefits that I did. Yeah.
And goal settings. How do you work with goals? Is goals important?
Absolutely. So absolutely. I think you're just a willow in the wind if you don't have goals. You're floating, and I definitely have been in that place in my life. But if you're just working, it's real easy to lose sight of the task itself if there's no goal in mind, right? If you're not working towards something, there's also no end point, which is a surefire way to let something wear on you, and it's a surefire way of getting bored of an activity. And when we talk about discipline, what's the point of being disciplined if there's no purpose to it? And that's what a goal ultimately is, right? Yeah.
And what's your goal for the coming year or years?
For the coming year, well, shit, Peter, I have a kid on the way, so get my shit together. No, I want to do a few more fights. I'd like to do a few more fights this year. I have a jiu-jitsu match at the end of January. It's like a super fight. CMMA is having an in-house tournament, so it's me against one of their Brazilian jiu-jitsu coaches. But aside from that, I just I want to grow the gym. I grow with the gym. Other people around me grow with the gym. So that's I have like financial goals specifically for the gym since I'm running it. I won't get into great detail about that, but to make a blanket statement is the growth of Systems Training Center. Yeah. The growth of Systems Training Center, growth of myself personally. Like I said, I've just kind of started to take small steps to just improve myself and get ready for the kid. Be the best possible human I can be for that person to look up to. Hopefully she looks up to me. Hopefully I give her a reason to look up to me. And raise a kid. Raise a decent human being.
Yeah. That's a challenge.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. It's interesting to see. Like, I'm not a dad, but hopefully I am soon. And I'm thinking about those things too. How do you go out in the world and raise kids that, like, decent kid? Like, what's the secret? What's the recipe for that?
Yeah. It's a great mystery. I mean, people can't figure out what the right diet is for them, let alone figuring out how to raise another human being. I just hope that more so, like, my hope isn't that, oh, my child's great, I mean, obviously but that's not a realistic goal. Like, just wishing for that, hoping that your child is great, I don't think it's enough. I hope that I'm reasonable and logical and give my child warmth and a sense of safety and a sense of pride. And that's actually going back. This, by the way, was when we talk about life goals. When I talk about MMA, I really have achieved one of my big goals in life. Was I wanted a picture with a belt. I really did, so that when my child grows up, they can see that they have it in their DNA, they have it in their blood, that they, or whatever, they have it in their upbringing, that they can be something, out of, I don't want to say extraordinary. Hey, like, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but to do something above average, to do something
to be proud of, right?
Huh?
To do something to be proud of.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's funny because before you got this belt, I remember we talked one day and you said, I just want to be champion, You said that, and I think that was like 6-8 months, and I was thinking about that when it happened, and it's like, it's pretty cool how it works with goals. Talking about goals, you have to put it out there and start working towards it and believe that you can do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was cool. So I have only one more question.
Sure.
And that's something that I ask all my guests, because we're all about sharing your story and honoring you today, but we also want to give the listeners and viewers tools, because this podcast is all about helping others, going out there and doing what you did in their own way, whatever that they want to do. So what's the first thing they can do after watching or listening to this? What's the first thing they can do to get started?
Don't settle. And by that I mean, don't think that just because you are where you are, however difficult it might appear to you to improve your position in life, improve your mindset, whatever it might be, don't settle on it. You can do it. Again, I would like to refer back to that article, that one day sitting in my chair where I was like, oh, that'll never be me. I remember that mindset versus the mindset I had a few years later. When I started trying things in life, when I started to reach out and explore life a little bit more, I found my opportunities. And it's almost a numbers game. You have to cast the net, and something will catch. And it's not guaranteed for everyone. Not everyone is gonna find their place in life. Not everyone's gonna find their happiness. That's just the reality that we live in. But you damn well increase your chances if you at least put the effort forward. So I say don't settle. Because if you do, then that's where you are now, and how you feel about your life is where you will be 40 years down the line.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, don't settle, guys. You heard it here first. Thank you for listening in. And again, a big thanks to our sponsor, Heston's Beds Los Angeles. Heston's will change the way you sleep forever with the finest beds, mattresses, and bedding accessories in the world. If you're serious about success, you should be serious about your sleep. Check them out at hestonsla.com. And if you have any questions and comments, please check us out at ilsuccess.com. Also email us at info@ilsuccess.com. And if you like this episode, share it with your friends, family, and everyone else so they also can benefit. Once again, thank you, Dima, for coming here. It means a lot. And I hope you had a good time.
Thank you, Peter. It's an honor to be here, man.
Thank you.